Merry meet, Annie here. This week is Subs Week on Pagan Perspective, and we are so happy to have the opportunity to bring our thoughts to you this week. The question that Kara let us know was this week's question came from Fork Full of Pie. Don't you love that moniker? Who I have had the privilege over, I think, several years now, knowing from several online forums as LQ. LQ, thank you for the question. And it was a series of questions, and it began with something like, do we find anything missing from our path? Any voids that we found within our spiritual framework that we've had to go on our own and work out? And what leaped to my mind immediately was, since I came to this tradition in a very formal sense in the 70s and was trained in a coven and guided by the elders in that coven and learned to celebrate in community, that one of the greater voids I found early on when I was probably, I guess, close to 30 was when the time came for that coven to end and for folks to go on to different directions. I did not find like minds. I had been driving, a couple of hours to get to that circle for the better part of all of my 20s. So it involved a 4-hour round-trip drive to get to where we met. So there wasn't any socializing with those people in between. There was coming together for the purposes of circle. Now, on the holidays, there were times we got together that were more social than ritual or combined the two. But in general, while I had been trained to grow magic as a group and to have a greater part of my spiritual expression be through community, when the circle was over, I was left not having that connection any longer. Now what I appreciate is the very situation that so many of our viewers here on YouTube have been in naturally throughout their entire experience of nature-based or pagan spirituality, in that they have been alone, exploring the path on their own, and deciding what is it to one person and how does one person celebrate it. But for me, the first time that I came through something missing and what to do about it on my own literally was being on my own. Not having brothers and sisters, not coming together on moons and on holidays to celebrate as community. And that was a very difficult time for me. It was a good time, and in the end, a very powerful, powerful time, second only to my first coming to traditional Wicca and what I learned and experienced early on. A decade into it, what I had to learn and experience was a more intimate relationship with the gods, a more intimate relationship with what it all meant to me working alone. Did I still want to cast circle? How did I want to celebrate the holidays? In my case, I had been high priestess, so I was used to circle being led by me and my partner, by him invoking goddess into me. It was a whole different thing than to be on my own and to welcome the gods and invoke them in ways that were very different from what had been done in circle. It was a huge shift in my awareness of what the gods could be and how they could move through us. It was not a particularly happy time because I am a creature of the community of Wicca, and circle and being with others is a very important part of the magic and the work that we do. It will always be that way for me. But in the end, those next years that I spent by myself became very powerful parts of my spiritual growth, indeed my maturity. Because when the opportunity came to be again in circle, I could bring to that the power of the greater power, I should say, of what it had become to me alone to what it had already come to mean to me communally. So a very difficult time in my life, but indeed something that contributed vastly to what I do day to day and what I do alone and privately and in community that's not a pagan community. in addition to what I do and how I celebrate with pagan brothers and sisters. I guess the other part of your question, LQ, was how did you handle it and where did the inspiration come from? So I've probably explained a little bit how I handled it. It was almost like the stages of accepting death. The whole denial, anger, the whole process you go through. I was very frustrated that I could not find another group that matched my previous group. I found groups that claim to practice similarly, and indeed some have been inspired by Trad Wicca, but I didn't find any that were close enough. Now, I wasn't on a search to duplicate it in its exactitude, but I needed certain things were definites for me that needed to be matched in my nest experience. I wasn't necessarily finding that, and I wasn't finding it within a drivable distance. It's actually remained that way for me where I live, in that my circles since have been very close to and inspired by those traditional experiences I had early on, but they have not duplicated them exactly and cannot claim to be traditional in the same sense. They are inspired by, but not exactly like. So the goal was to find ones that were similar enough that I felt comfortable and felt welcomed and felt part of, and it wasn't so much whether I would be leading or attending, it was just the feeling of being in total relationship with those in circle. What inspired me was truly believing in the greatness of who we are when we come together. Understanding the power of our individual brightness, what we are uniquely that we are when we stand alone, but also what that is blended in with others, with a wider community. I did find other groups over time, and my joy was recreated, and I have been very happy throughout my life to have been aligned with several amazing groups, whether as their priestess or as an attendant to the circle. Where did my inspiration come from? It came from whenever I would go deeply within. I not only felt connected to what was powerfully and strongly and uniquely Goddess within me and who she was and who I was in relationship to her, but whenever I journeyed into the deepest places, I always felt the spirit of others. And my inspiration came from, in private meditation and in circle on my own, I always felt very connected with others who practiced similarly. And it's why I will always say that all of us are at the same time solitary and not solitary, in that what we do connects us with others who practice similarly. My great learning was it didn't have to be practice identically. It did not have to be I was high priestess in relationship to the high priest in a circle. I could lead, I could co-lead. I could be part of a circle that was co-led by all the members, and I could be attended in circle that was led by others. One of the greatest learnings in my life was the joy you take from all those many and varied roles, in addition to the joy I took from discovering the solitary path, the celebration in my most quiet personal moments. And to this day, no matter how powerful my group experience is, for instance, last night's Samhain experience was moving and beautiful and everything I could possibly have hoped it would be with my coven. But then there was what I did alone when I came home last night. The power of that was a great learning for me. I have thought about this ever since Kara mentioned the subject to us, looking for other voids, as LQ referred to them in practice. I can't find them. I can find them at moments, but part of the beauty of what all of us share, I really do think all of us who are sharing the spiritual path, no matter how we express it, it's not a spirituality that lets those voids be. If we are on a sincere search, we, with our creativity, with our personal relationship to the gods, with a relationship to mentors and guides in the spiritual world or in the real world. We can fill in any gaps that arise. We have complete freedom, first, to acknowledge there are gaps, and that those gaps can change over time. Something that felt completely right and perfect suddenly just doesn't fit. Maybe our life's experiences teach us something differently as we age, or maybe we just question something we've never questioned before. There's great power in those moments of a gap or a void or a feeling of something isn't fitting quite right. And I believe there is so much freedom in knowing we have the power to fill that, and fill it in any way that feels natural and right, that we think of, dream of, experience, pray for, meditate for, any way that we fill in what feels like a void in our practice. We have the power to do that. And in fact, it's expected that we will do that. And that in the flow of our experience of a religion, as a relationship with all that we're connected to and with our gods grows and deepens, that we fill in, that we create, we co-create with the divine. Those places that are gaps or develop gaps over time. That's how I feel about that. It's part of the beauty of what we experience, that if something that even can feel like a chasm suddenly opens up before us, we can look at it and look into it and explore it and make it become a bridge, fill it, make it beautiful, make it part of, make it blend in with our experience of the religion. I hope that is a response to what you had put up as a question, LQ, and we'll look to your comments if there's something that I left out or didn't address or misunderstood the question. And I'm very happy after this time of having known you only by the written word and not in a YouTube community, to be able to look into your eyes, my friend, and be able to say from my heart, Namaste. And to our Pagan Perspective viewers, the opportunity to acknowledge the gods within you, knowing that's what we have in common. Namaste, my friends.